All right, this is Teacher on the Radio, and we're broadcasting live on the interwebs early for a pre-recorded edition of the Teacher on the Radio program. I believe this is going to be number 435. We've been on the air for 15 years, and last week and this week anyway, I'm doing a special thing where I'm bringing in some of my favorite people from the town of Cookeville to do an interview to kind of just expand. You know, this was always a college and community radio show that was really based in DIY and people who have their own lives. And, you know, there's this whole like official Cookeville that's going on today that didn't used to exist, or at least maybe I just never paid attention to it. And I want to be a amplifier for alternative Cookeville on this radio show and in my life. And so I brought in a friend today who I think is a huge kind of new person on the scene in terms of having a public face to championing alternative ideas and alternative viewpoints in the Cookeville community. And I know her as a local entrepreneur who recently, a couple of years ago, opened her own store called the Tiny Cloak. And so we're going to just chat about things related to her life, and the work that she does through the Tiny Cloak, which isn't just a store. It's kind of part of something much bigger and more beautiful than just being a store. So I'm Teacher on the Radio. My guest today on the show is Montana from the Tiny Cloak. Hey, Montana, how are you doing?
Hey, doing good, Andy. Thanks for having me.
So why don't you start off by just telling us your vision for starting your own business and how it kind of came into being. But I remember very vividly seeing you post on Hip Cookeville before you opened your store and saying, does anybody remember the New Century Bookstore, which was run by my friend Susan, which is right across from the depot, and there's some fancy pants clothier there now. And you said, does Cookeville need another store like that, like New Century used to be? And I think you got like a 200% thumbs up to that idea. But what is the vision for the time? What is the Tiny? What do you tell people who have no idea who you are or what you're about? Like, how do you explain the Tiny Cloak to new folks in the community, or new friends that you meet out around town, or how would you describe yourself to somebody who's not aware of all the different wonderful things that you're doing over there?
Well, it obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, the New Century Books was a store that really left a lasting impression on me. And I recognized that whenever I talked to people, that's what we would talk about, was that we loved New Century Books. We miss having a store like that here in Cookeville. And when I saw that little spot for lease, I just called and asked like how much, and it was relatively affordable for me to be able to be like, oh, I can do this. So I just took the opportunity to be like, I need this space as well as I know that I'm not the only one that needs it. I knew there were other people like me that needed something like this here. So yeah, it was pretty much just like, I got to take this opportunity to do this for not just myself, but our community.
So, but how would you describe that community? So, what would you call it? New age? Would you call it
Oh, it's definitely eclectic. All kinds. Yeah, there's such an overlap of, yeah, just the people, like you said, alternative lifestyles, just different paths that people recognize that we're all on, and they can come to this shop and get some of the things that they need. Books, incense, candles, crystals. There's even obviously some records there, some really good ones. Some art, painting, photography, jewelry. I mean, this is like such most people would describe it as like almost like a very specific gift shop or souvenir shop, but it's obviously described as a metaphysical shop.
So why don't you check off for some of us who might be curious, what are some of these different traditions that inform the products and some of the vendors? And she did reference, and I've not talked about it too much on the show, which I'm negligent for doing so, but right when she opened, I started having a crate of vinyl LPs. And this goes in with the spirit of your store, is that you have multiple local vendors who have a variety of interests and expertise that want to sell their wares there. But I've been curating, I think, of probably my best. I've been giving away basically my best albums to curate a vinyl bin over at your store since you opened. but why don't you check off some of the different, I know you make a lot of your own products. I know you order, different kinds of artwork with like the tapestries, the tarot decks, and things of this nature. But like, could you kind of explain to folks who are new, like what that means, metaphysical gift store, what some of these different traditions are, and how you felt called to blend this work with your business? Because I think a lot of people, maybe I don't know, they sell I don't know, they sell paint, or they sell car parts, or like, not everybody's hustle is connected with their worldview. So could you kind of just I'm really curious, unpack for our listeners and for me some of these different converging areas, and how they connect with some of the products that you have for sale?
Obviously, when we talk about, well, personally, whenever I talk about metaphysical, I'm talking about the physical things that we want to metaphorically focus on. So I might have some spell jars that are about protection and grounding, wisdom and learning, psychic awareness. And that's obviously not just my spell jars, but also some of my zodiac boxes. Everybody really likes those. And well, one of my favorites is Cookville Tarot. Uh, Tarot is obviously another big piece in the shop. Like you said, tarot tapestries. The Cookville Tarot was actually inspired by a lot of the local people and places that are always a part of of us. For example, Roots Salon owner Emily Blackman, I have her as the high priestess because she's obviously a very intuitively inspired person. She has this space that's just amazing for all kinds of people to come in and embrace their true selves, I guess, in a way. And I couldn't help it with the Cookville Mall being the death card. And like, no offense to Cookville Mall, but it is kind of a place that a lot of places open up there and then they close down, and then something else opens up and closes down. Um, that's, of course, that's kind of like the death card thing, is a lot of rebirth. When one cycle ends, another begins, and that's a lot of what we like to take in the metaphysical side of uh, alternative lifestyle, I guess, is we embrace both the light and the dark. And that's what we like to explore. It makes us feel not just connected with ourselves, but connected with everything. Is that a lot to unpack? It might be.
It is not too much to unpack. So I guess what I'm really curious about is, do you feel that one of your jobs is to teach people to be more open-minded or more tolerant about different religious paths? And have you experienced any pushback from more conservative members of the community for existing in the way that you do? And I don't remember if that ever happened to Susan or not, but I'm just curious. I mean, you practice a form of neo-paganism. Is that correct? You identify with traditional spiritual practices that predate Christianity. Is that true?
I do practice some of those things, but really, I wouldn't say I'm strictly neo-pagan. I don't say I'm actually strictly anything. If I did give myself a label, it would be an omnia switch. I believe in a lot of truths that a lot of different religions have, which is be a kind person, build up your community, and care for the people that you love, and uh, so on and so forth. So it's really, I like to say witch because I mean I do spell work. That's what a lot of this holistic. health stuff that we also talk about, like tinctures and body care products, like strictly natural, homemade stuff that we can take care of ourselves in a better, more natural form, I guess, is a way to describe it for me. But yeah, I absolutely have had tried to have as many opportunities as I can to talk about different lifestyles, because yeah, that's what I, not just for myself, but for everyone else here. It's kind of like somebody has to do it. Somebody has to like show that we're here and that we can live together. And that's kind of one of the more interesting things. So yeah, that you've asked is that, has there been a lot of pushback? Surprisingly, not as much as you would think. I personally thought I would have protesters the opening day of the shop, but I didn't. But I've definitely had some people come in and be like, "What is this stuff?" And one lady asked if it was like straight, "Is this Satanism?" And I was like, "No, no. What this is more of an earth-based practice, because going back to the metaphysical, I tend to like to focus on the four elements: air, fire, water, earth, because we all breathe the same air. We all have felt the burn of the sun. We all drink the same water. We are all from the same earth. And that's what I mean when we say we're all here in Cookeville and we can all live together too. And it's good to embrace different lifestyles. I've recognized that for myself, especially that I might not work with some deity, but somebody else does, or and that's okay. Like we can all walk our separate paths and support each other in it.
So you used the word omni. Is that the word you used?
Yeah, omniist. Yeah.
So I'd not heard that before, but I'm guessing that's an inclusive and eclectic path as opposed to in a particular lineage or a particular tradition. Is that correct? Like
Yeah,
omni
I would
refers
think
to
so. I mean, because
multiple or everything.
yeah,
So
yeah. Why close myself
so
off
I
from
go.
different practices that I can use and explore? Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. I started out when I was a kid as a Christian, and then I became. I think I was a neo pagan, but I packed an extremely loose and eclectic version of earth based spirituality all through my 20s and 30s, and then I got back involved in Christianity throughout my 40s, and now in my 50s, I'm kind of putting it all together, and I've participated in a Universalist church, and they have people that are atheists and people who are Buddhists, and there's definitely not one thing that makes up a Universalist or Unitarian Universalist, which is where I participate today. And we had a guest a couple weeks ago who started talking, about Satanism with the group, and they were not prepared for it. They didn't know. They wanted to pick a bone, a little bit with that person, to talk about, this. But in a big tent, you're gonna encounter those different, different kinds of viewpoints. But I think that's wild that you have had. I guess I would have been a little disappointed if you hadn't had at least one person come in the store and say, "Oh, is this the devil? Oh,
Is
no,
this
not
the
not."
yeah, right.
So
That's a
anyway,
classic.
this is Teacher on the Radio, and my guest today is Montana Chambers, and this is going to be this pre-recorded interview segment is going to be edited, and hopefully some of the internet lag will hopefully not make it unaudible. We'll be able to use it, and I'll paste this in to a future broadcast. It's supposed to be next Monday on October 24th, which should be Teacher on the Radio number 435, if I got my numbers correct. Right now, we're going to take a break and get back to some music, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to hear more with my interview guest, Montana Chambers, on this pre-recorded interview section for Teacher on the Radio, which airs on Mondays at 4 p.m. on 88.5 FM WTTU The Nest. So we are back, and my guest is Montana Chambers, and I chose this to do this interview because it's October and the leaves are changing and it's fall and everybody's got their pumpkins out and and they're ghosts and ghouls and skull candy and Day of the Dead stuff, and it is kind of the witchiest time of the year. I don't know if this is the and you said you don't specifically identify as a pagan. I use that term very loosely, but I think of this as like pagan Christmas, and it's just a big old time of the year, and everybody gets dressed up, and I just love fall. I've always loved fall. I've always loved Halloween, and so the songs y'all are gonna be hearing today are going to all relate to some of Montana's choices, and probably a couple of mine thrown in there for the fall season, for the Halloween season. But what are some of the most important aspects of October, Halloween, also known as Samhain, Day of the Dead, this whole time of the year, late October? What are some of your favorite parts of it? Why is it important to you? Why should people be open-minded and not closed-minded about Halloween? And while you're at it, tell us about the event you have coming up. And this will be airing on Monday, the 24th. So the following Sunday of this broadcast, you're hosting a public Halloween event in Dogwood, I believe. So tell us everything. And also, people should buy their Halloween. You probably have some Halloween swag they need to buy too. So just tell us anything and everything you want about Halloween and how it relates to the Tiny Cloak. And that's a ridiculously long question. I apologize. Montana.
That's all right. That's all right. Halloween, Samhain, So's End. Man, yeah, it's a big deal in terms of like the witchy community loves Halloween, of course, because yeah, it's our season. Technically it's our New Year's Eve. Like this is the end of the growth season, and this is when we go into the winter. This is when back in the day when a lot more people were having to farm and live off the land. Historically, this is when we had to prepare for winter. So a lot of work being done, a lot of hunting, a lot of reaping of our crops so we can prepare it for winter crops. And then, yeah, we recognize that the hard months were coming, the darkness. So we actually see this as really embracing an end to things, and that it's okay to let go of things. I mean, like you mentioned, the leaves are changing, the colors. We can see that when the wind blows, the leaves are falling off the tree, and it's beautiful vibes. You know what I'm saying? It's like you said, yeah, it's a beautiful season of reaping what we've sown throughout the year and then letting go of what we don't need anymore so we can go into the winter a lot more prepared.
So for people who don't know, there's a wheel of the year that many different traditions practice, and that I'm very connected to. And I know that some people believe that the church calendar in Christianity is almost 100% derivative from this calendar. It is to a certain extent. It's undeniable. Now, there's all these different levels to it and different debates. I'm talking about with the Christians, not amongst you and me. But anyway, but let's just go through the wheel of the year. So this is New Year's, and that's um, October 31st into November 1st, and then in about 6 weeks or so after that, it's going to be the shortest day of the year for the winter solstice. And then what's the next holiday after the winter solstice? It's a really special one.
Imbolc. It's Bridgets Day. It's the halfway point between winter and first day of spring. So that gives us a moment to like recognize that life is coming back. It's it's almost subtle signs that we see: the end of trees blooming with new growth, um, the tiniest of spring flowers. It's one of my favorites too. Yeah. And that gives us a moment to be like, oh, we're making it out of the worst of it too. So the past is past, and the darkness has moved on, and we can move toward the light.
And around here, people talk about Groundhog Day, which is, right around the same time. So, so we go from Halloween or Samhain to winter solstice, and that's the very darkest time of the year. Little bit of daylight, and then after about equidistant from Bridgets Day, we have the spring equinox, and then so if Halloween is kind of like Christmas, we have this very, I don't know, this very sexy holiday that comes in the spring.
All about fertility. Yes.
I was told that's when the god and the goddess kind of get down.
Yep.
And
Stara. Yeah. It's the cycle of literally life and death. So life has come back and life is fertile again. The ground is fertile. That's when we plant our seeds, and that's when, mating seasons usually start with a lot of animals, so this is the time to like start to, like I said, plant your seeds, plant your crops. When we were a lot more farmers and gatherers, and more, I definitely say this every time, more in tune with the cycles of the earth, so we can have that really good harvest later in the year around this time. So cycles. It's always cycles.
So the spring equinox, then there's Beltane, and some people make a gigantic maypole out of a tree, and they tie cords or ribbons to it, and they dance around the maypole. Apparently somewhere, I think it was Mark Creeder found, they have a picture of people dancing the maypole at Tech, like 100 years ago. And so maypoles used to be very, very, very mainstream. Apparently the May dance was a very mainstream thing, but now I think you have to go to some kind of sanctuary for neo-pagans or other types of folks who practice these things. So I don't think you're going to find a maypole right in town anymore. But out in the woods, people will still be celebrating that. Then there's the summer solstice.
Summer solstice, the longest day of the year. That's when everything's really green again. And this is when we once again start to think about, okay, well, this is our last chance to get all our crops planted, everything prepared again for the coming harvest. Yeah.
So we're in the northern hemisphere, so our days are pretty long then. But if you go really farther north in the northern hemisphere, if you go up to Michigan or Alaska or way up into Canada, or if you go over to like some of the northern European countries, they don't have any dark at all at summer solstice.
Right. Yeah.
There's a really freaky movie that I saw.
Sun doesn't set. Yeah.
Did you ever see that? It came out a couple of years ago around the time of the summer solstice, midsummer. Did you ever see that movie? It's kind of like a horror film about the summer solstice.
That movie actually changed my mind about what a horror movie could be, because it's so beautiful but also horrific. I mean, it's bright colors, broad daylight, white clothing, and then just traumatic scenes, and it's like, okay. Loved it though.
I love that movie too. I worry that for people that aren't familiar with any kind of alternate stuff, that this could be a negative stereotyping, right? So like we were in Kentucky, and we were seeing it just in a regular theater when it came out, and there were some folks that were just they were not having it. They started cussing at it, and then they got up and left, and it just so happened that the people that left the film were African American, and there's the one African American character in the film who is observing the exotic white people. So it flips the script, like in a lot of anthropology, where you have the white person going to visit Africa or South America, for example, where the brown people are, or the darker skinned people are, and they're being exoticized. And so this movie exoticizes the white people. But this couple in this film, they started cussing it out loud. My wife and I laughed so hard because they're like, man, these white people are crazy.
They are not okay. They are never okay when the script is flipped. It's always like, how dare you? And it's like, oh, okay.
So anyway, I think that was one of the brilliant moves of that film. But they got up and left the movie. And so then we get to Lammas and fall equinox. So there's 8 days, and they're all equally spread apart, and it really does make the year kind of go by quickly. Now I'm old, so the year goes by too quickly. Anyway,
No,
so
you're right. I mean, when you're focused on those like phases, it does surprisingly make it feel like it is happening so fast. Because I mean, when we're busy doing the things that fulfill those seasons, yeah, before you know it, yeah, it's Yule, it's all in block, it's a star, and yeah, because that's what it is. We keep going, the earth keeps spinning, it keeps going around the sun, and we can appreciate it every day by being in tune with it.
yeah, it definitely helps me pay attention to what season it is, and also you can add into that, the different phases of the moon as well.
Yes.
Because of light pollution, we as a culture are not as in tune with the moon and the stars as we could be, because we blot them out with all of the light pollution. This is Teacher on the Radio, and this is a pre-recorded portion of our show number 435, which is going to air on October the 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. My guest is Montana Chambers from the Tiny Cloak, a local store here in town, and we've been just spinning a little bit of our ideas about the seasons. We're celebrating Halloween season right now, and we're going to come back and talk some more about Halloween in particular, and then we'll get into maybe just hearing a little bit from her about the music that she chose for our show. But this is a pre-recorded portion of Teacher on the Radio number 435 for October the 24th, pre-recorded a whole week early the day. I've got another show coming out today that I'm recording this. I'm having a hard time keeping up with the time. But anyway, this is Teacher on the Radio, and we'll be back with more. Our guest is Montana Chambers from the Tiny Cloak. So this is Teacher on the Radio on 88.5 FM WTTU. This is a pre-recorded interview segment of our 435th show, and all the music's been picked out by our guest, or most of it anyway, picked out by our guest, Montana Chambers. But I think I cut you off at the end of the last segment. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your Halloween celebration that you have coming up on October the 30th that you're sponsoring?
Oh, yes, the Samhain event on Sunday, October 30th in Dogwood Park. We're going to have some readers, some arts and crafts. We're going to have some Halloween music. It's going to be a good time. I wanted to do this every year to be able to present Cookeville with the alternative lifestyle and spiritual believers and practitioners who have lots of really cool wares and goods and stuff and art to share with the community. And if they want to buy it and support them, that'd be great.
So when I asked you to create for me a Samhain playlist, I didn't know for sure what all direction you were going to go in. And to be honest with you, I definitely, could see us going in the direction of, a lot of folk music with a lot of ritual element, we're gonna call in the four directions, or we're going to, we're gonna invoke this deity or that deity. But you've chosen a much more I don't say mainstream.
I know it seems silly,
but I love it. I love it though.
I mean, I know it seems silly to have the ones most people would be like, I would listen to this in the store right now, but I've waited all year to listen to Halloween music, and this is the stuff I like to listen to. But I do have some random stuff thrown in there for sure.
I think it's like with winter music, people get into their different zones, and I'm like, just bring it all on, and some people are like, how dare they play, Santa Claus is coming to town in September, and then how come that, it's only Santa Claus and there's no Jesus, there's no Jesus in there. And I'm not going to come back and throw, I didn't know what you were going to suggest, but I would have been fine if you had brought me all this, super duper, wispy, women with scarves twirling around,
which I think I do have a
brambles, and
maybe a few songs on there that are a little like that. I don't know.
Yes, you do. Towards the end of the playlist, you definitely do have a few songs that kind of fit that bill. But if a person was going to go on Google, what is the most sacred song for Samhain, they're not going to get
Oh no, not the Monster Mash.
or Thriller or Adam's Family. But I love that. Yeah, it's so eclectic. This is everything that this show, Teacher on the Radio, has been about colliding all of these sources together. So tell us how much fun you had.
Totally what my music vibe is. I feel like everybody talks about how, I think there's like a meme online that's like, oh yeah, I listen to everything. Are you okay with Mongolian throat singing? Like puts on Mongolian throat singing. That would be me. And every time I'm like, no, for real, I would do that. I've done that. And some people are not okay with that. They're like, what are we listening to? That, and yeah, even the mainstream stuff. I know it's so hard for me to choose, especially like if somebody asks them, what's your favorite song? And it's like, I can tell you what I'm listening to over and over again right now. But yeah, I've always liked all kinds of music. Just let me consume it all. Let me see what your favorite music is. Like that's what I'm more interested in. What's your taste in music? What you like to listen to right now? What are you obsessed with right now? So yeah, I like to have an open mind about music, all kinds of things. So yeah.
So we've been spending the better part of the talking of this 2-hour show with Montana Chambers from the Tiny Cloak. Montana, I don't think we ever explained where your store is located. And for people who are visiting you for the first time, it could be a little bit hard to find on the very first try. So why don't you tell everybody where the store is, and then remind us again what time on Sunday you're going to be gathering in that Sunday, the 30th, for those of you who are listening to the pre-recording of this on live stream. But so remind us again where they're to go on Sunday the 30th at what time, and tell us exactly where your store is located and what your hours are and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so the shop, because Google, wants to send people to the front of the building all the time, but that's not where it is. It's in the back of the building, directly behind the Tennessee Legend Distillery on the historic square. It's across the street from the courthouse on Reagan Street, and there's a door. It opens up to a stairwell, and you'll turn right, and there's another door down a hall, and it's around a corner. It is really kind of tucked away. But I have directions online, videos to check out if you want to use that.
So that is the Maddox building on
Maddox building
on the main Cookeville Square, and the exact location to the easiest access to the Tiny Cloak is on Reagan Street, which runs up east-west perpendicular between Jefferson and Washington. So it's on the south side of the Maddox building, between Jefferson and Washington, kind of behind the Putnam Room, next to this, behind the distillery. And what are your hours that you're open at the store?
Oh, hours are, I'm open Tuesday through Saturday. Tuesday through Friday, hours are 9 to 11 and then 12 to 6. And then Saturdays, 10 to 12 and then 1 to 6. So I can have a lunch.
Yeah, and she's a sole proprietor of this store. She doesn't have a huge staff, and this is probably how she's making it something that she can do as her career. She doesn't have any added labor expenses. So she's the boss. She's her own boss. She's also her own employee. If you go to the Tiny Cloak, you're going to get to hang out with this amazing person, Montana Chambers. And so Tuesday through Saturday. And so just don't go during the lunch hour, which is from 11 to 12 on weekdays and from 12 to 1 on Saturdays. And all of this is on her Facebook page. She's got couple thousand followers on Facebook, I think, the last time I checked. So you can find the Tiny Cloak on Facebook, and she keeps it very up to date. You know, some people, they make a Facebook page, they never update it. She keeps it up to date. She posts videos of herself talking about different topics that are relevant to her business. You can find out all kinds of information there. Yes, while you're there, you can browse the books and records I have on consignment, but you'll also be browsing the clothing and art of several other vendors. How many total different Cookeville vendors do you have currently besides yourself?
I want to say around 10. Around 10.
So that's a really great thing. And see, when stores do this, you know, they get a cut of everything. If I sell a record, she gets a cut of it, so it's profitable to her. But she's making a space for a whole segment of the Cookeville population. And I've heard often from people, "Oh, I just bought one of your records, or I bought one of your books. I've got my new anthology with P.W. Covington, the Grateful Dead poetry anthology, and I've got." I think she still might have a copy of my pandemic poems. My friend Peter Werby, the only copy I know for sale in Tennessee, Summer on Fire, has been on the shelf for about a year and a half. Somebody wants to buy that. So all kinds of great stuff. But there's actual clothing, there's artwork. I mean, just everything you could imagine that you would need at a gift shop. And plus, you get to hang out with and support a really cool local business person. So what else would you like to say to our listeners before we wrap up our interview portion for today? Anything, any closing remarks?
Closing remarks.
Trust Did we say again?
And thanks for having me, Andy. And thanks for doing this. We definitely need more people shouting from the rooftops of alternative lifestyle community in Cookeville.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I saw that there's I shouldn't speak ill of others, but I saw this lifestyle magazine, and I was like, well, I don't fit that. I mean, that's great for them. You know, more
no, it's great that they did that, because they are showcasing some people who are trying. Who are doing really things cool, in our community. Yeah.
Very cool people. But I didn't identify with the vibe of it, I guess is what I was saying. It's like, you know, and so I feel like with having you on the show, I had another guest. I probably need to put out my own Cookeville anti-lifestyle magazine, and if I do, you'll be on the be featured in it for sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
this is a pre-recorded portion of Teacher on the Radio, pre-recorded on October the 17th for October the 24th. And if you just saw it on social media, that's great. But if you're hearing it in the radio show, you're going to be hearing some great more Halloween themed music that Montana chose up for us. And check out the Tiny Cloak on Facebook, but even better, visit them on Reagan Street at the backside of the Maddox building. Go up the little handicapped walkway there, and you'll be right there. She's got even a beautiful window display at the backside. So once you're close, you'll be able to find her. So thanks, Montana, for coming on Teacher on the Radio, and everybody will
get back
Andy. You're welcome, and back to the music on 88.5 FM WT.